Dog for sale. Only $10. The voice echoed through the butcher shop like a hollow bell, cutting through the cold air. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the meat cooler. There, amidst dangling slabs of red flesh, hung a small trembling puppy on a hook, its eyes wide with fear and confusion. People passing by glanced in through the glass front, then quickly turned away. The butcher stood still behind the counter, his face stone-like, unbothered by the soft whimper escaping from the puppy's throat. To him, it was just another item on display. The scent of raw meat filled the air, masking the faint smell of the puppy's fur. The butcher's hands, thick and stained with years of work, wiped down the bloodied table without a second thought. Outside, clouds gathered, casting a gray light through the shop's window, making the scene look even more lifeless. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And before you continue watching, comment your country's name below. Let's see how far love can travel across the world. The butcher hadn't always been this way. Once, months ago, he brought the puppy, whom he had named Shadow, into the shop with a sliver of hope that it would keep him company in the long, lonely hours of his work. Shadow would chase scraps that fell from the counter, wagging his tail, clumsily slipping on the cold tiles. But over time, the butcher's heart hardened just like the frozen carcasses he handled every day. The shop was his world, and in it, everything had a price and a purpose. Shadow became a nuisance in his eyes, distracting him, knocking over buckets, leaving paw prints on the freshly cleaned floor. Each time the puppy sought affection, the butcher turned away. The soft warmth of Shadow's presence clashed with the cold business of meat and knives. Eventually, he stopped feeding the puppy, stopped looking at him, stopped calling him by name. That's when he decided that even $10 was more than the little creature was worth. The bell above the door jingled gently as David stepped into the shop. He was a tall man with calm eyes that carried a quiet strength, like someone who had seen storms but chose peace. The smell of iron and cold hit him instantly. His gaze moved around the shop until it froze on the small figure trembling on the hook. His breath caught. For a moment he said nothing. The butcher didn't even look up, slicing a slab of beef with mechanical motions. "What is this?" David finally asked, his voice low but steady. The butcher lifted his head slowly, bored, as if answering a question he had heard too many times. $10, he said flatly. "If you want it, take it." David stared at the puppy, who blinked at him with desperate eyes, and his jaw tightened. He could almost feel the tiny heartbeat pounding with fear from where he stood. Something stirred inside him, a quiet, burning anger mixed with sorrow. David walked to the counter without another word. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small leather wallet and unfolded 5 crisp $100 bills. He placed them on the blood-stained wood, the paper looking strangely clean and fragile against the scarred surface. The butcher's brow furrowed as his knife paused mid-air. "I said 10, he muttered. David's voice was calm but carried a weight that filled the room. "I'm giving you 500. Not for the dog, but to teach you something you've forgotten." The butcher blinked, genuinely confused for the first time in years. "It's just a dog," he said defensively. David's eyes locked onto his. "No," he replied softly. "It's a soul." He walked past the counter, gently lifted the trembling puppy from the hook, and wrapped him in his coat. Shadow's tiny body melted into his arms with a sigh of relief. Without another glance, David walked out of the shop, the bell jingling faintly as the door closed behind them. The shop felt colder after they left. The butcher stood alone, staring at the empty hook swinging gently as if something invisible still clung to it. The faint clink of the puppy's collar echoed in his mind like a ghost. He tried to return to his work, but the meat on the counter now looked strangely lifeless, hollow and cold. Hours passed, yet the sound of David's voice lingered. "It's a soul." He closed the shop early that day, pulling down the shutters with a hollow clang. That night, he sat alone at the small wooden table in his kitchen, the same blood-stained apron still draped over his chair. He poured himself tea, but it grew cold untouched. The silence pressed against him, heavier than the cleavers he swung all day. For the first time in years, he wondered if he had lost more than just his tenderness, if he had lost his heart altogether. Regret seeped into him like cold through cracked walls. Days passed. The butcher returned to his routine, but something in him had shifted. He began hearing small echoes, Shadow's soft whimper, David's calm words, in the quiet spaces between the clatter of knives. One evening, as he closed his shop, he wandered aimlessly down the street. The air was warm, carrying the faint laughter of children. He reached the edge of a park and paused. There, under the golden glow of the setting sun, was David. The puppy, Shadow, was no longer trembling. He darted across the grass in joyful loops, chasing butterflies, tumbling over himself, then rushing back into David's arms. David laughed, his face bright with warmth as he rubbed Shadow's ears. The butcher stood hidden behind the iron fence, frozen. Something unfamiliar tightened in his chest. He had never seen the puppy's tail wag like that, never seen him run so free. For a long time, the butcher simply watched, unable to move, unable to speak. The world around them faded as he stood there, watching love in its purest form. The man who once saw only price tags now saw something priceless. For the first time in years, a smile broke through his rigid face, faint and trembling. His lips moved without sound at first, then formed words meant only for himself. "He deserved love," the butcher whispered, "not a price tag." The breeze carried the words away like a confession, soft and unseen. He turned away slowly, walking back to his cold shop with a strange warmth blooming quietly in his chest. Sometimes we measure life in money and forget its true worth. Sometimes it takes just one act of kindness to remind us what love really means. The butcher sold a puppy, but David saved more than a life. He saved a soul. Love is never about cost. It's about care. And in that park, under the fading sun, the butcher finally understood.